Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. So I got fired again. Um, just happened like an hour and a half ago. I'm just trying to think about this story. One interesting thing about this job. Let me just, if you haven't been following the lore of this latest job, what had happened. I've been selling insurance for like 3.5 years now. Maybe it's almost 4 years at this point. I think it's been 4 years now that I've been in insurance. It's actually been over 4 years that I've been in insurance at this point. The previous place that I left the first place I was at because I just couldn't sell anything. The guy asked me to stay, and he also tried to win me back. And it wasn't personal on my end, but I couldn't sell anything. I just didn't want to keep doing it. Then I was at another place, but I left that because, again, couldn't sell anything, and the job had just become a customer service job. So no disrespect to him or anything. He had been good for me, and he'd put up with a lot, and it wasn't like I was married to like doing the sales or anything, but I just hated doing the customer service so much. And I was also and my boss was a good guy, but I was beginning to worry about his sanity. Sounds like I have spoken with him since, though. It sounds like he's doing okay. So this job, right? This guy, like, I went in for and interviewed for this job, and the guy had. I'm going to just tell the abridged version. He didn't hire me for the place that I interviewed with, which was the agency that he runs directly. But he also owns a separate agency that a current employee of his, like, does the day-to-day stuff. So like, he's got a current employee who's a day-to-day manager. And then he comes into that business, that other agency, 2, maybe 3 times a week, sometimes less. And he's there for an hour or 2 hours. Because I guess when you own a business, you need to be on site, even if you've got somebody running it. Plus, just the type of personality that owns a business wants to be there to see stuff. That's just the kind of personality. That's the kind of business owner personality. So anyway, he called me and he said, look, I hired somebody else for the job that you interviewed with me for. I was happy about that when he said that, because part of me was really intrigued by what he said to me during our interview. We had a really good conversation. But part of me was also like, this guy is maybe a bit too intense for me to work with. But he said, but I own another agency. If the guy who runs it there likes you okay, we can bring you on over there. So I interviewed with that guy, and that's the guy who would be my direct report. The agency, we'll just call him Bob. And we'll call the guy who owns everything Steve. So Steve said, you go interview with Bob. Bob likes you. He'll bring you on, and then we'll go from there for a commission-only job, which I like because it takes pressure off of both sides. So I interviewed with Bob, and Bob said, okay, yeah, you can come on. So I started there, and I've been there for the last, I guess if I started in early May, so you can go back to missed my first day of work. It would have been the day after Cinco de Mayo or the day after that. I can't remember. So it started in early May, and here we are, I guess, 5 months later, right? So May, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, we're at 6 months. The math there doesn't seem to work, because if we started in month 5, I don't know, I don't get it. But it's been over 6 months. So yeah, I had real doubt. Like, pretty much once I took the job, I regretted it. Like, I was like, I just had like a bad feeling. I didn't feel confident. And I really didn't want to do anything, but I need some money. And my health, which is never good, was worse then than it is now. It was And yeah, but I went, I bit the bullet and went through, started it. And I was, pleasantly surprised by how it went. I got used to, because, I'd been between jobs for a while. For like over a month, I hadn't worked at all. So I was able to get back into the swing of working and stuff like that. The problem was that the same problem I had at my last two insurance jobs, I could not sell. Now, I sold better at this one than my last two, where I was just getting completely blank. Here, I could sell a little bit. So, but, it's been since, like the first few weeks were training, but ever since then, you've got like, 5 months, right, of sales. And well, that's what Steve, the head boss, was telling me today. There has been no improvement. Actually, this past week had been my best week. I sold like 3 policies that week. And so I was saying it's trending up, and he said, no, sales goes up and down. You have one big week, but this isn't trending up. Yeah, so I think the first thing is that I'm not mad, because I know that I'm better off. This job, I enjoyed it because it was really low stress. But, well, it was low stress when Steve, the main guy, wasn't there. But he was a really type A personality who kind of makes me nervous. I definitely wouldn't have, if he had hired me for his thing, I would have gotten fired right away. But he had said something interesting when he hired me. He said, the truth is, there's a lot of guys who I fire who go on to do really well somewhere else. And that should have been a warning sign to me. That that this probably wasn't going to work out. So, like I said, I don't think the sales part by itself is what did it. I think that the sales thing, he may have disagreed, but I thought there was some improvement on the sales stuff. And I think it's just that I wasn't the kind of employee he wanted around the office. So when you talk about sales, with insurance, there's, basically 2 different kinds. There's the people who call you, the inbound, and there's the people you go out and get, the outbound. So one thing that he was stressing today is that these inbounds, the one that I'm paying money to solicit this business and have them call into us, those need to be converted. Not going to convert every single one, but you need to convert them. The thing is, I don't care what he says, all right? I know that if you go through the inbounds that I take versus what my 2 coworkers take, that I convert at the same rate that they do. So to say that I'm not performing on those just doesn't cut it for me. I'm fine with those. I did them at my last job. I can convert those policies. If he wants to say otherwise, I would need to see numbers to show it, because I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And he had talked about like certain things I said or didn't say on the phones that he wanted me to change, and I tried to address those. Mainly with those calls is some of it's rapport, educating the customer, but it's going to be very heavily dependent on, do you have a better rate? These people are shopping around, or can you close them now before they hang up the phone and have a chance to talk to somebody else? If I wasn't matching their production on that, I would need to see some data. He didn't give me any numbers. I believe that I was converting the same amount on those. Now, he may have overheard me do things on the phone that he didn't like, oh, you shouldn't sell it this way, you shouldn't sell it that way. Okay, fine. He's entitled to his opinion. It's his business. He can run it however he wants. But in terms of the end results, what you measure, again, unless you put numbers in front of me showing that I'm not converting as well as my 2 coworkers, I don't believe it. I think that my conversion rate is fine. Now, overall, my conversion rate is shit. However, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, because a lot of the quotes that I do are people I reach out to, which are going to be it's going to have a very low percentage anyway, like close to zero actually. But anyone who I do get is usually going to be a long tail. Like I called them and I quoted them and had a conversation, but I didn't get it. But then a few months later, they come back. You know, my immediate boss, Bob, had told me he sells several like that every year. People who he talked to, he quoted, and then he gets them down the road. And I had talked to Steve in our weekly sales meetings. I said that this is going to be the only way to make these outbounds work. And he had signed off on it. You know, it sounded, you know, he said that it sounds good. So I think it was like a few things. I think he was thinking about firing me, but I don't think he was sure he was going to. I think he was going to think we're going to talk. He's going to talk to me today and give me a warning, see where I was. But I think he finally decided to fire me for a few reasons. One is he was really upset about this. This fella who came into the office on Friday. Guy knocks on the door, right? And, you know, he says, hello, and he opens it up because all three of us were in the office. Myself, Steve, and Bob. We were all in the office, but I'm the one closest to the door. He knocks on the door, and then I just kind of looked over there outside of my cubicle and finally opens it, and he's like, hello? And then I came in there, I was like, oh, hey, how are you doing, sir? And he said, hey, I'm looking to speak with Ballface 8020 because this guy had been talking to me on the phone. I was like, yeah, I am Ballface 8020. Hey, come on in. And I said, sorry, I didn't know you were coming. I didn't realize you were coming. Or I would have got something for you. I did buy pizza today, and my coworkers didn't want any. Do you want some? And he said, yeah, sure, I'll take a slice. So, you know, he got a plate and picked one up, and then he started eating. He was like, oh, this is good. Can I have another one, actually? And I said, sure. And I said, can I get you anything to drink? I can go next door and get you something if you want. And he said, no, I don't like to drink and eat at the same time anyway. But if you have a water, you know, I'll take it. And I looked in the fridge, and we have one, so I gave it to him. So the kitchen is right near my desk, okay? So he was there standing next to like the table that's next to my desk. I was going onto my desk to pull his stuff up. He was mentioning to me that, you know, had tried to get through to me, but he kept getting caught in our office has this new AI answering service that's like a real pain in the ass. And the main boss, Steve, comes over to him and is like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? You know, yeah, what did you think of that AI voice? And he's just talking to him for a while. So anyway, then, but anyway, I ended up not being able to sell this guy, for the policy game. We had a really good conversation, but there had been some kind of mistake. The rate that I had quoted him over the phone was not correct because I gave him the rate for if you're paying twice a month. I gave him that as your monthly rate. But if you actually did it the monthly rate, then he was going to be paying more than he is with his current carrier. Now, look, okay, that's a mistake. That shouldn't have happened. But it's just like, it's a weird quirk. It's like, to me, that's a reasonable mistake to make. Like, it's weird. Like, okay, I know what my main boss Steve's is going to say is, well, you've been here for 5 months. You can't be making mistakes like that. Look, I make mistakes like that. Okay. If that's going to be a problem, and I guess it is, then yeah, you need to get somebody else. I don't consider that the end of the world. You know, I mean, those are the kind of mistakes that, you know, you learn from. I'm certainly not going to make that same mistake again. I'll make 100 other different ones just like it. But I'm not going to, but, you know, if that's a deal breaker for you, okay. You know, but I'm not even going to say I don't think it's reasonable. Like, because, you know, it's your business. You can do it however you want. But I'm not like, this isn't a mistake that I'm super ashamed of. That kind of stuff can happen. And, you know, that's just the way I am. And I guess, you know, him being the way he is just the way he is. So he talks to me today about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you didn't sell him because you screwed up the payment plan, and you're still making mistakes like this 5 months later." Okay, whatever. But you had him. You didn't bring him into the office, like with the side office that we talk with customers, and open up the computer in the office. You were sitting there working on your computer, and you had him out there eating pizza in my hallway, standing up eating pizza in my hallway. That's not like the vibe that I want for this office. That's like what you guys do in this office reflects on me. And that's not what I want this office to be like. Okay, look, I mean, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. I should have taken him into the office. Okay, look, and yeah, maybe I should have known that instead of doing that. But that's the kind of stuff that I don't notice. It's not a big deal to me. Stuff like that. And then so that's what he was saying. Like, so I'm just like, he was saying, like, how much do you care about this? And like, I was like, well, and I was like, don't say that I don't care, because, I'm coming in every day. I meet with you. I try to do things, your way. And then, you say there's no improvement, but I have done this. And he said, well, I don't see any improvement. You're still making these mistakes, still stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, but I don't make the same mistakes twice. And last week was my best week. So, and we had agreed upon a plan to go forward, with these outbounds that I'm getting quotes, opening conversations. Some of these people are going to come through down the road. So, but it's weird, right? Because I've been, fired from jobs and stuff, but usually and I think that's where like he was coming from. Like he was basically saying it's not about the effort. Like, the effort is there. You've made an effort to make this work. But in so many words, you're not what I want for this office. I do not want you and your whole vibe, energy in this office. Because remember, he wasn't paying me anything. I'm doing extra work around this. I'm only getting commissions. I'm taking work off the hands of his other employees, and I am, getting him some sales and stuff, but it's not enough. So I think his thing is like, let's say I was bringing in a ton of business, then he would have been willing to put up with the vibe that he doesn't like. But my sort of kind of like disorganized, skittish nature and stuff, I have a real great rapport with the customers. I had a great rapport with this guy. I wouldn't be surprised if I had stayed on that I sold this guy 6 months down the road. I think a lot of the stuff the main boss, Steve, misinterpreted, or he's just gets, how like sometimes you start seeing somebody a certain way and then like everything they do is fucked up. Because I'm pretty good about owning my fuck ups. Sometimes things just don't break my way, and that's it. And it's more about how you deal with it when it doesn't break your way. I'm not even saying that I necessarily would have eventually sold a lot, or even better than I currently was. But for him to say, like, from his perspective, that there's just no improvement, that's just not true. That's just not true. May not have been improvement he was satisfied with, and he can say he doesn't see it, okay? He's saying he's measuring, the conversion rates aren't the same. The conversion rates, again, are bullshit. My conversion rates with the inbounds were fine. I'm going to stand by that until I see some other data. Again, I don't convert the referrals the same because I don't get referrals. But, give that time and it might come about. But no, it's weird, right? To get fired. For me, it's my first time ever just getting fired for sheer non-performance, as opposed to insubordination or, me just quitting or shit like that. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's how things go. Like, I could have done more, right? I mean, as I say, I'm not trying to say that I was working hard or anything, I mean, I was basically slacking off. However, like, there were things that I didn't slack off on. Like, the customer service stuff I took real seriously. The office support stuff I took seriously. I didn't even get paid for that. When I did get an inbound, I took it. If an inbound got missed, I immediately called. So those are calls that are nobody's going to be calling them back now, without me doing it. So he's just going to end up losing those sales altogether. Anything, like when we got a lead, I called and I followed up and stuff. Where I didn't really put a lot of effort in is making a lot of outbound calls. Now I was doing more. That was starting to break up. But the truth is, I wasn't doing a lot of it because I wasn't getting much out of it. I wasn't able to sell anything. And so that's why I came up with the idea that, okay, I'll do more and just accept that anything I do get is going to be down the road. Okay. But, so if I had actually been selling some of those, I think that he would have been like, okay, well, at least I'm getting these outbound sales that I wouldn't otherwise. And he just feels like, well, they're never going to come. Look, when I did my first auto insurance job, same thing, all outbound stuff, I couldn't sell shit. Then I went to another place. So I didn't know. It was like, am I the problem or what? Then I went to another place, the place I was with before this one, and they had phenomenal rates. And I just killed it. First couple of months, I was doing almost mostly outbounds, and I was selling a ton. Because what I would do is I would do what they call quote and hope. I would get the information, get the quote up, call them, and say, hey, we can do your auto insurance with $500 deductibles for $125 a month. How does that compare with what you're paying now? And so often it would be so much cheaper than what they currently had that they would be like, yeah, let's do it. The problem is you can only sell that way if you have great rates. So I know that my other coworker, who's mainly in sales there, that's how she started when she started with Steve so many years ago at his other agency. She did that, which he preaches against. She did the quote and hope. She would just make the quotes up, call the people, say, here's the number. And she just dominated in sales there by doing that. But what worked for her then, what worked for me then at a different agency is not going to work now. And Steve doesn't, like I said, he doesn't even like the quote and hope anyway. So I'm able to get people on the phone, talking to them, building rapport, having them in. But what I can't do is sell it when I don't have a better rate. And if I did have better rates, I would have sold a lot more. And if I had sold a lot more, I would have made more calls and sold still much more. So again, you can say the performance isn't there, but you could have had him making these same outbounds, and I'm not convinced the numbers would be much better. I think they'd be better because he's very, I don't know about with my other two coworkers, but he's a very natural, very type A salesman type. I think you maybe kind of get the idea what I'm talking about, like what kind of person is. He's got a very specific way of doing it. Tall guy, about 6'2", strong, very lean, mid-30s. And you can tell this is a guy with a lot of sun in his chart. Probably got a sun in the first house because it's too much sun. His skin is pale and it's like he's got kind of breakouts on it, which happens when you have the sun in the first house. And his hair has a reddish tinge, and he's always got this 5 o'clock reddish tinge, which a facial shadow. I mean, you want to Trump, is, I don't know if he has a sun in his first house, but Trump is a Leo rising, and he's literally orange. The sun rules Leo. So my guess is this guy is probably, I don't know if he's a Leo because he doesn't really look like a lion like Trump does. Like Leos, Trump, Muhammad Ali, they actually look like cats. They have cat-like features. This guy really doesn't. But all that's not important. The point is that this is a really dominant type A guy. Really makes me nervous. And because the thing is, I don't think he necessarily sees me at my best, because he sees me when I'm around him, where I'm always kind of nervous and skittish, because that's just how he is. And although I think I was getting better on that too. But I'm sorry, where was I going with all this? But anyway, you see it, right? This is a guy, he wants things done a very specific way. Like that whole thing with the guy eating pizza in the hallway. Yes, okay, look, I should have brought him into the office and started stuff up there. Okay. Okay. It was obviously that was something that was a real big deal to him. Is it objectively a big deal? I don't know. What I do know is that he's the successful entrepreneur. I'm not. And, sticking to that vision is what entrepreneurs like to do. Now, there's other ways to do it. Like my previous boss was also an entrepreneur, and he wouldn't have given a shit about something like that. In fact, neither of my two bosses would have cared about something like that. But he does, and the truth is he's more successful than either of them. Actually, not totally sure that's true. Because this agency that I'm with, I'm actually not sure is doing that well. So maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. Because it seems like something that's not a big deal, but maybe it is. I don't know. So I guess I'm in a situation where, like, I totally understand why he fired me. I'm actually glad that he did because I'm better off. Like, financially, I wasn't making enough money there. I probably never was going to. I don't think I was going to be able to continue to work with him long term because everything I tried to do, we have a sales meeting every week, and he was friendly with me on an interpersonal level, but I could tell he was like, nothing I did was ever like he was ever happy with. He was always like, no, you got to do this, or you're not doing this, not doing this. It's like, okay, whatever. And I think I already told you guys, right? That like when he hired me, he said, I fired, a lot of people don't do well with me and then they go and do really well somewhere else. So no, yes, I got fired, and yes, it was for non-performance, but I stand by my work. I don't want to be like one of those like millennials or Zoomers who you see on TikTok, pushing things like, well, I've been working really hard, and so I don't deserve to get fired. It's not that, first of all, I wasn't working that hard, but I was working the procedure. I get that the results maybe weren't there, but I don't think that's really why I got fired. I think he wasn't seeing the progress, but I don't think that if you had put somebody else, including himself, in my position, if there would have been a lot more sales. Like he might have been maybe from networking or something, but from outbounds, he might have sold more again, just because he's more type A and because he would have made more calls. But for the inbound conversion, I think it would have been the same. And I don't think it would have been a huge difference. I mean, it's just hard to sell outbound insurance policies when you don't have good rates. So look, I stand by my work, but I also understand why he decided to fire me. Like I was saying, I know I'm better off. I've already started looking. I don't know if I'm going to stay in insurance. I don't even know if I'm going to stay in sales. The problem is, right, is that any job with like a strict, you have to be here at this time, that's not going to work. I'm going to get fired very quickly. So that takes out all retail jobs. And then I need a fixed schedule. So my working days may just be over, in which case my money from my inheritance is going to run out a lot faster. So we'll see. At least my investments are doing well, so that might hold me over for a while. But we'll see. No, don't worry about Ballface 80/20. I'll be fine. Now, like I said, I'm not upset about this. But anytime like you have an experience, anytime I have an experience like this, it does trigger some anxiety in me. Not really that bad right now, but there is a little bit. So I'm going to wait a few days. But I'll see what's out there, start applying for stuff. I might maybe do something like 1099 work for a while, because something with more flexibility, just to get started, get my foot back in. But one thing I'd like to try is like inbound sales, like either appliances or eyeglasses or something. Not inbound sales, I mean in-person sales, where I'm really able to talk and connect with people and go over what they want. I think that kind of goes more into my strengths. And I'd be open to doing another insurance one. So, I'll see what's out there and maybe we can do it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's asked me to talk about the Middle East peace deal. I may talk about that later. I'm just glad it's over. That's all for now. See you in the next.